Today we are going to begin Chapter 3, Lesson 2, Adding Integers. Again, our essential question that we are focusing on for Chapter 3 is what happens when you add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers. Today our focus is going to be on adding integers. Two vocab words that we want to pay special attention to today are the words opposites and additive inverse. So please note at the end of the lesson you are going to want to add those two words into your vocab map that you have. All right, taking a look at our beginning of our lesson today, one of the things that we had talked about earlier that we want to pay close attention to is the word additive inverses, okay? Two integers that are opposites are going to be considered to be additive inverse. We can have the inverse property as it is also known, okay? In this case, specifically additive inverse because we are adding two numbers, okay? With the additive inverse property, what that is stating is when we have two integers that we are adding, for example, if I add the whole number 2 plus negative 2, okay, that is going to give me 0. Another specific example of the additive inverse property would be if I decide to take the whole number 12 plus negative 12, and I add those two together, my answer is going to be 0. So with our additive inverse property, anytime we add or the sum of any number and its additive inverse, or basically its opposite, is going to result in 0, okay? Given the situation on the bottom of 203, it says the temperature outside is -5 degrees. Name the temperature that would make the sum of the two temperatures 0. So if I think to myself, if I have the integer -5 plus what number would give me 0? So I'm asking myself, what number is the opposite of -5? And of course, that would be 5. So -5 plus 5 equals 0. So another example of the additive inverse property. Couple things to remember here and to point out as we are looking at lesson 2. When we are adding integers with the same sign, we are going to add their absolute values. Okay, so again, when we are adding integers with the same sign, we are going to add their absolute values. So in your book, one thing that you're going to want to highlight or underline would be the top part, okay? When we are adding integers, okay, with the same sign, meaning it's going to be positive if both of those integers are positive, okay? So again, if both of my integers are positive, then my answer is going to be positive. So an example of that would be if I take 10 plus 10, I would get 20. Okay, or on the other side of that, if I take -8 plus -8, in this case, both of my signs are the same, they're both negatives. So -8 plus -8 means I'm going to have a -16, which leads us into the second bullet point here. They're both going to be negative if both integers are negative. And you can take a look at the examples as well that the book has shared with you. Okay, here's a few more examples. Again, you have a -3 and a -2. So both of those integers have negative symbols in front of them. So therefore our answer is going to be a negative answer. And over here, they are giving you the number line as a visual to show you what your answer would be. Another example, -26 plus -17. Again, both integers are negative, so our answer is going to be a negative. Please take a minute right now and fill in A, B, and C. As I take a look at letter A, I have -5 plus -7. both integers are negative, so my answer is going to be a negative. 5 plus 7 would be 12, so negative 12 would be our answer. Taking a look at letter B, negative 10 plus negative 4. Again, both are negatives, so my answer is negative. 10 plus 4 would be 14. As I take a look at letter C, I have negative 14 plus negative 16. Again, both are negative. 14 plus 16 would be a negative 30. So that would be your answers that you would have for those three problems. Now, let's take a look at adding integers with different signs. So some things to point out here. As I take a look, your sum is going to be positive if your positive integer's absolute value is greater. Okay? It's going to be negative if your negative integer's absolute value is greater. And again, this is when we are adding integers that have different signs. Okay, so let's talk about some examples of what they're talking about here. For example, if I would add the integers negative 8 plus 3, okay? I'm looking at both of my numbers. I have negative 8 plus 3. When I take a look at these, negative 8 is going to have the larger absolute value. So I'm thinking absolute value of negative 8 is actually 8. Absolute value of 3 is going to be 3. So therefore, this is the one that has the larger absolute value. So my sign, or my answer, is going to have a negative sign because this one has the larger absolute value. Then what I am going to do is I am basically subtracting these. So 8 minus 3 would be 5. So my answer is going to be a negative 5. Okay, taking a look at the example your book gave you, 9 plus negative 4 equals 5. 9 has the larger absolute value, so 9 minus 4 is 5, and your answer is positive because 9 was positive. Taking a look at the second one, negative 9 plus 4. Again, your absolute value of negative 9 would be 9, so that's larger. So my answer has to be a negative. 9 minus 4 gives me 5. So again, my answer is going to be a negative 5. Please take a look at the other examples that they have given you on the top of page 205. You have examples 3 and 4. Pay close attention to those. If needed, pause the video as you look through those. And then go ahead and pause the video and take a minute to complete your Got It problems D and E. As we take a look at D and E, I'm looking at the number 6 and negative 7. Negative 7 is going to have the larger absolute value, so therefore my answer is going to be a negative. Then I'm asking or thinking to myself, 7 minus 6, okay, would give me 1, so my answer is going to be negative 1. Taking a look at letter E, negative 15 plus 19. 19 is going to have the larger absolute value when it's positive, so 19 minus 15 would give me 4, so my answer is a positive 4. Example here with your additive inverse, 7 plus negative 7, or you're adding a whole number and it's opposite, and we're going to get 0. Another example where you have a negative and a positive. Again, pay close attention to which one has your larger absolute value. An example where you have 3 numbers together. When you have 3 or more, what I would recommend doing is combining your like terms first, meaning the 2 negatives together, then go ahead and add. Or you have to also be careful when you have 2 and negative 2, those 2 are additive inverses or opposites. So technically those are going to cancel each other out. So we would have a negative 15 left. And you can see that in example 7 as you read through. Take a minute at this time to go ahead and complete Got It problems F, G, and H. So pause the video to complete those 3. As we take a look at the answers for your got it problems at the bottom, letter F, I've got 10 plus negative 12. Negative 12 has a larger absolute value, so my answer is going to be a negative. 12 minus 10 would be 2. Negative 13 plus 18. 18 has a larger absolute value, so my answer is going to be positive. 18 minus 13 would be 5. And then looking at the last one that we have here, negative 14 plus negative 6 plus 6. These two right here would be additive inverses, so technically they're going to cancel each other out. So negative 14 would be the answer I would have left. One more example that I would like you to take a look at would be on the top of page 206. This is giving us a real world situation. So take the time right now, pause the video to take a look at example 8 and how they came up with that answer, and then go ahead and complete got it problem letter I. When you're looking at got it problem letter I, technically we should be thinking negative 3 plus negative 6 plus 4. So you're going to want to go ahead and combine your two negatives, which would be a negative 9 plus 4. So our answer is going to be negative 5, and we're talking degrees. Please go ahead and take some time right now to complete the guided practice problems on page 206. Please work through numbers 1 through 4 and then have your teacher check those.